What is up? What is good? What's going on, everybody? This is the Money Match Gaming Podcast show extravaganza, wonderful
I like
fiesta,
it. I like it.
special everything
Love it.
going on.
I'm
So I'm
all
part of
about
your
it.
co-host team, The Infinite. I am good here with my good old partner, the one and only Dan Estrada, and we meet in the
Mm,
the stratosphere on the earth.
yeah.
We don't live in the same place, so we kind of have to do it that way. It makes sense in my mind. So Dan, let them know what's up, man. Let them
What's
know
up,
what's up.
guys? Welcome to the Money Match Gaming Talk Show Podcast Extravaganza. I heard the word fiesta thrown in there. There was a lot wonderful. Uh,
Carnival.
Pretty much everything Lance said, I'm seconding it. Yeah, I apologize, by the way, at the beginning. I might cough a couple times. I was sick all weekend, and I'm still kind of coming over the sick. So if you hear me do some of these, like the or like a cough, I will do my best to dab away from the mic so I don't just cough into your ears because that would be terrible, and I don't want to do that to you. But I just want to warn you, it'll probably happen. So I'll try my best to fight it off. But today we are talking about reboots, remakes, remasters. We live in the time of redoing everything. Is this good? Is this bad? I don't know. We're going to explore this concept right now. We're going to talk about it. So without further ado, let's get into it. And let's talk about the month we're currently in, September 2019, has at least 8 or 9 games coming out this month
Yeah.
are some form of reboot, remake, or remaster. You have, for example, River City Girls is a reboot of the River City Fighters series, or River City Rivals, I believe it's called, River City Rivals. You have next month Overwatch. I mean, that's a port. That's a little different than a remaster, so I won't include that. But the Switch is the king of the remaster system. There's so many remasters that come out on the Switch. Another one coming out this month is the Spyro trilogy, which is already out on other consoles, but another remaster. And in addition to, it's not just affecting games, it's also affecting movies. As 2 movies this month, 2 of the bigger movies, are reboots or reimaginings or remakes. It Chapter 2, that is, I mean, based off a book, whatever, but it's a remake of It that came out in the 90s, I believe, was the last time it came out. So
Could
you got
be.
another reimagining there. And then you also have Rambo Last Blood, which is a reboot of the Rambo franchise. And this is something I want to talk about a little bit later, is it a sequel? And where does the line get drawn between reboot and sequel? And we'll talk about that. But what do you think are some of the reasons that we live in this time where so many different properties are becoming rebooted?
Um, I think there's like it's weird, man. It's weird because I'm gonna be throwing out some like random things that I think in general, and then kind of go from there. So I think our generation is. It's not that our generation's weirder than all the rest. It's just that there's a lot of technology that I feel like is getting introduced that makes a lot of things more interesting. So, my opening for this was like, remakes are fine. They're fine as long as they're done in good taste. And so there's like 3 overall reasons why I think remakes are fair. But we'll get into that afterwards. I want to answer your question first. I think there's like an explosion of new, and when that happens, people crave nostalgia, in my opinion. So it's like, we got all these new series, we have all these different things coming out, and, our generation is just hitting like adolescence in a lot of senses, and we're getting to that point where we're like, man, this does not seem like the way we came up. And I think we're hitting that phase of like, well, back in my day, we're only like in our 30s / late 20s, and we're still going, like, we're already there. Back in my day, I feel like my dad did that in his 50s, and I think because society's going so fast, because so many things are like just like there's tons of content everywhere,
Yeah,
whether it be
yeah,
just
absolutely.
Facebook shows and all these different things, and it dilutes the quality of things or just the perception of what quality is, because you can only get quality if you do have this budget, this, that, and the other. But like it's so in your face and there's so much of it that you're just kind of like, all right, pause. Back in my day, it was simple, and we had
Hmm.
these nice cookie cutter shows that are undoubtedly classics. There's lots of classics that they're remaking, whether it be games, whether it be movies, whether it be TV series. There's lots of things to like, and there was a lot of good stuff back then. And I think, the watered down solopreneur, solo content creator, YouTube, short clip, Vine type stuff is great. It's good. I don't want to knock it because there's a lot of good stuff that gets made. There's a lot of fun and cool clips, but I really think it boils down to that. It's just there's so much, and I think a lot of us are just looking for the good old classic, the good old rock
Hmm.
me back to my childhood type of situation and stop all the craziness because
I
social's
mean,
crazy.
I agree with a lot of what you said. Actually, I think a lot of those things are not things that I was thinking of, but definitely make sense. Um, for me, the reason for remakes, reboots, remasters, there's a few. I mean, one, obviously, dollar bills, y'all. At the end of the day, these things make money, a lot of money.
Yep. Even if they're bad.
And yeah, yeah, because it's like the name, almost based on the namesake alone. However, in addition to money, I think the reason that we're living in a time where we're getting so many reboots, remakes, remasters is because all these properties have now found voices on the internet. You know, 10, 15 years ago, the internet and social media was not what it is today. Where
Yeah.
now people can say, like, oh, dude, do you remember this? And like hundreds of thousands of other people will be like, oh, yeah, what are you talking? That's crazy. Yeah, I totally remember that. That was awesome. And then these like companies are like, hmm, people people want that thing that they saw before. They're interested in this again, which is like, it's getting the message back to them, which is like, all right, we can throw money into this to hopefully produce more money, which is why we'll get like, you know, Disney buying Star Wars to make a billion Star Wars movies, or Disney buying Marvel to make every Marvel character have its own movie in addition to comic books. You know, getting all these remade games. People are like, I want a remake of Doom 64, and Bethesda's like, fine, we'll remaster Doom 64. You know, things like that. It's the fact that people have a way to send this information to the creators and be like, we want this again. And like, oh, you want that again? Like, yeah. Like, oh, okay, great. So I think that's part of the reason also why there are just so many remakes and remasters and
I
reboots
can
all
I can actually add to that too. I didn't think of that part either. Like obviously the social's probably the biggest contributor to a lot of this stuff, whether it be talking, whether it be the content that's created because of the emergence of social and so on and so forth. But like I would also add to that, like we're getting to that age to where there's no reason that things shouldn't be backwards compatible. So in the gaming world,
Mhm.
I feel like, just because I got a new Xbox doesn't mean it
It
shouldn't play
shouldn't
my
be
old
able to,
games.
yeah,
And
to have
so
the ability to play older things.
right. So it's getting to that point to where the games themselves and the industry itself may evolve, and that may be a standard part of the evolution of each generation of
Mhm.
whatever it is. It is, and so it's like partly that because I didn't get rid of my Super Nintendo. That thing
Mhm.
died before
Yeah.
I got rid of it,
And now you
and
can just get Super Nintendo on the Switch.
right. So, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. There's a lot of old games that I will still play if I have the right people around me, and I completely agree with that. It's just so it's like I think it's like a lot of things. Now that you're
Mhm.
like breaking it, like your breakdown was good. I like that because it just makes a whole lot of sense. And
Mhm.
we just sure we have upgraded technology. Sure, things are nicer and they're more compatible, but we still like our old stuff. And,
Mhm.
that shouldn't disappear.
Right.
I shouldn't lose that value because I'm still buying your stuff.
Yeah. So another question I have is: are you a fan of all the remakes, remasters, reboots? Obviously, you can't say you're a fan of all. Like, I'm a fan of every remake ever, because that's not the case. Some things that get remade or rebooted or remastered, whatever you want to call it. I'm just gonna say if you get, I don't want to say read because that'll be misconstrued some way, but if one of these rewords, whatever. There are so many things that get remade, remastered, rebooted. There's so many things. It's impossible to like them all, and it's impossible for them all to be good. There are ones that shine bright like a diamond, and there are ones that are just not up to snuff. Some things were meant to be left in the olden days. Some things were meant to be brought back. Not everything holds up, and that's totally fine. But as an idea, are you a fan of remakes, reboots, and remasters?
Okay. So this will actually go into what I was going to say earlier. I don't mind going back to the roots. I don't mind bringing the past into the future. I don't mind recreations, remasters, porting, or any of those different things. It just has to be done in good space or good taste. So I watched a podcast about this topic like a month ago when Lion King came out.
Okay.
And he was basically, hey, this is my opinion, and it was Wisecrack. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but I watched a lot of their interpretations of movies and so on and so forth, and they had this very same topic. And they basically said, this is basically what they said. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it has to be done in good space, or taste. And it kind of has to meet, like there are 3 different ways that a remake can happen. Like, number one, it could just be an update. So a good example would be from like taking a colorless picture to color. I don't think I could ever argue with that. Like, please do that. Yes, cool. Sure, some will lose a little bit of its flavor because there were black and white soundless pictures that soundless as in only music and all the subtitles and so on and so forth, just in case anybody doesn't understand, and they don't do well in color and full sound and full recreation, and there's a lot of artistic things that you have to do to make that work, so it might not work, in an updated version, and I think that's where you're going to hit some of your hit or misses when you do it that way. There's also like another level to where it's like you take like a really old school type of idea and then remake it in modern times. So a good example would be that Romeo and Juliet movie. I forget what it's called.
It's called Romeo and Juliet.
That's all it is.
It's like a plus.
Okay.
You're talking about the one that came out in like the late 90s?
Yeah.
Ledger and whatnot?
Yeah. And it was like, it was weird.
But Leo? Who's in that movie? Who's the main actor? Is that Leo? It's not Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger might be in it, though.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. They look way different.
I watched that movie.
Right. And that was probably done in good taste. It's a nice twist. That kind of.
I mean, it was the same. It was still the same exact story. Like they read all the dialogue straight from the play. It was just adapted to a modern time.
And I think it worked.
Yeah,
I think it worked.
It was definitely cool.
Yeah.
I definitely thought it was cool.
Yeah, it was just interesting, at the very least, and I don't think anybody could complain with that. It's like, oh, that's really cool. I like that. The second way is like, just like somebody adding their own twist, and I think this happens a lot in like superhero movies. It's like, how many times has Spider-Man been remade? How many times? And I mean, like, sure, some of it's just simply it's switching, the licensing switching hands, and they're like, all right, we're going to take it in our direction. And then it switches to all right, we're going to take it in our direction. And cool, great, I get that.
Well, actually, Sony's always had the licensing to Spider-Man. It's just that they get, like...
directors and such. I'm talking about all that. It's an artistic vision. All right, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to do my little spin. And that has its merits, too, because it's not like we didn't get any good Spider-Man movies from that.
Right.
There's plenty that people like, and I like that. I like that. I think that's good, too. It's just And then there's, like, the ones that are done only in the universe, but like they're kind of made in the spirit of a different movie. And I can't give any examples, but that was definitely something that they mentioned that I would also consider a remake. We both, well, you mentioned earlier that we're going to discuss the breakdown of like what makes a remake a remake. I think it does fall in that category. And as long as those things are done in good taste, it's great. Some of the things that are coming out now, like The Lion King. That does not feel like good taste. I don't think that actually added to, its legacy. It feels like a money grab. It feels like a shameless money grab, and it's okay in a sense. People are gonna buy it. Like, I can't blame them for doing that. People say they want it. Cool, we gave it to them. Sure, it's kind of a money grab. Sure, we created it because we knew it was going to make buku dollars. But people keep saying they want it, and I can't fault anyone for doing that. But it's not really my cup of tea, Like, I really, to be fair, I didn't go see Lion King, even though I'm like bashing it. Like, it just.
I love the original Lion King, but that did not seem like a theater movie for me. And it sucks so much to say that because I love all the people in the cast, but it just didn't look great.
Right. It made sense in Beauty and the Beast. I hear people love that. I haven't seen characters. That. Yeah.
The characters are already human to begin with. Same with the Jungle Book. I mean, I didn't see the Jungle Book. Everyone said the Jungle Book was good, but like the main character in the Jungle Book is a human.
Right.
With all animals, it's weird because they're not like animals, like real looking animals cannot convey the same emotion that animated animals can.
Right. And so some of it
and animated people can convey similar emotions. I can't say they convey the same. In anime, they do crazy things with their eyes that I can't do. So they can convey emotion a little bit different than I can. But
so it has to fit that narrative to where, like, just don't make it shameless. That's really like my only goal. Please don't make it shameless. Just give me a nice twist. Give me an updated perspective. Give me a change in the way they approach it. Give me a reboot. As long as it's done in good taste. And it's not like, well, we threw some stuff together and here you go. You guys kept saying you wanted it and this is what we came out. And it's just like some potluck of just random things put in there. And you're like, man, is this what I really wanted? Is this worth what I'm paying for? And it's like, there's so many times to where, yeah, you did a great job, but there's so many just fails. And like the current remakes that are coming out, I can't give them. I'm sorry. But I mean, to each their own. Make your money, man. Like, I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I kind of agree with you. I'm a fan of some, I'm not a fan of other. Obviously, you can't say you're a fan of everything. But I like the idea of remakes or reimagining sometimes. I think it could really put an interesting twist on a story and bring it in a different direction and introduce it to a new audience, which I think is cool. Remasters, I am a fan of for the most part if it's, a game I like or a game that I never got a chance to play. Like, for example, they announced that they're remastering and porting Fire Emblem X, Shin Megami Tensei, Tokyo Mirage Sessions onto the Switch. They announced that at their most recent direct. That is a game from the Wii U era that I did not get a chance to play, and I thought it looked awesome. And I'm very excited that I'm now getting a chance to play it when it comes out on the Switch. There's like, The World Ends With You, which is one of my favorite games on the DS. They remastered it and put it on the Switch. I heard that it's not great, but that's more of a control thing, more so than like the remaster itself. But that makes sense because a lot of that game was done on the touchscreen. So Switch, I mean, it has a touchscreen, but it's not really the main focus. So like I agree to some extent. I disagree with others. Reboots, I think, can be kind of cool too, especially in like games like you had the most recent Doom 2016. I think that was a really good reboot of a franchise that was essentially dead and dormant. We hadn't seen a Doom in many, many years, and all of a sudden here comes this Doom in this new era with new graphics and new everything, and it still was as kick-ass as ever. Like, it still did a great job of conveying everything that Doom is meant to bring to the table. So I think things like that are really cool too. But like you said, it's all dependent on how it's done and like how much love was put into it too. Like, you can tell when like we were talking about Lion King, you can kind of tell when something's a money grab, when something's like they're just doing this to make a quick buck. And that's kind of what happened with Lion King. Like, I think they did, obviously, all the people who worked on that movie. I'm not gonna, I'm
They
not
worked
gonna.
hard.
They
Yeah.
worked hard. They did the best they could. And once again, I haven't seen the movie. I'm sure it's fine, but it comes off looking from the perspective of an outsider as like, oh, you guys made this just because you can make a lot of money on this, which makes total sense. As for a business perspective, that is why a business would make something, is to make a lot of money on it. That's how they work. But from a fan's perspective, it doesn't come off across as good as, like, say, the Judge Dredd thing, which I didn't like the new Judge Dredd.
Oh, I
But
fucking loved it.
yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of people who agree with you wholeheartedly that are like, yo, this was perfect. This is exactly
It's like in there, like incinerator.
yeah.
Yeah, I loved it, man.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's hits, there's misses, and it's all to an opinion. But for the most part, I'm okay with them existing, the idea of them existing, because, and this kind of leads into my next question: do you feel, and because I know a lot of people feel one way or another about this, but do you feel that remakes are starting to outweigh OC, or original content?
That's hard, to be honest. I don't think they outweigh. I think in a lot of senses, like a lot of companies, for how good the industry's doing, I also feel like it's in a lot of turmoil. You can think of like any game, and I mean, this all revolves around social. This all revolves around people to say things when they used to not be able to say things. Either you like it or you don't, and then it kind of fades into the ether. Nowadays it's like there's a niche for everything, and they don't stop. There's fandoms that won't stop, and I think it creates this weird scenario to where, like
I mean,
companies
look at this Save the OA people.
It's like,
I don't even know what the OA is and why it needs
I don't
to
either.
be saved. But they're doing interpretive dances in Times Square trying to save this show. Why? Who is why? Why are you doing this?
And so you find yourself in these situations,
Just send a
especially
tweet. Just send a tweet. Be like, save the OA. Hashtag save the OA. I did that. I did that for the AP bio. Guess what? It got saved. I didn't go dance in New York for it.
So we find ourselves in these situations where, like, they say it's like, the loud minority versus the silent majority kind of thing, and so we find ourselves in these echo chambers.
No. Loud majority, silent minority.
No, as in a lot of really angry people on social don't represent the entire group. So I'm not sure how it's commonly said.
Okay.
But there's like a common saying for that. Maybe I messed it up a little bit, but basically, there's like plenty of people who are outraged, and it just doesn't represent the majority of individuals. And I think we're just in a weird space to where I don't think anybody knows how to filter that properly. And so it's like these remakes, maybe they don't outweigh original content, but people like sure things. They do. And so when you have these giant franchises that made great original content, and it's like they might hit a couple busts, and you kind of get to that point, and that old stuff that everybody keeps shouting at the top of their lungs, we want a remake of 7, Final Fantasy 7 now, and then they're like, oh yeah, what about this? And they're like, no, and then it might tilt you a little bit, because it's like, in a lot of situations, like Nintendo's kind of notorious to this, to where they'll make good games, but it doesn't feel like they hear the community. And maybe there's just a lot of people screaming, and they're just not hearing the right voices, and there's enough people that just don't say anything at all. Because I'm not going to go on social and like hit up a company like, yo, why?
I also think that, at least in Nintendo's sake, a lot of the like people who shout at Nintendo to do something one way or the other are American, and Nintendo, being a very Japanese company in Japan, probably doesn't actually get those messages. They'll get some of them, but like Japanese people aren't online complaining as much about crap as we are. I mean, there might be. I guess I don't follow Japanese Twitter, but to my knowledge, the Japan like just the way the Japanese culture is, they're not big on getting
Complainers.
online and complaining about crap.
Right. And yeah, we are. We
Yeah,
are.
oh, that's like our pastime.
Right, right. So it's like
Like, what are we complaining about today, boys?
right. And so it's just social media, man, that does this weird mirror thing, call and response thing. And I think we just haven't sorted it out yet, you
I
know.
mean, honestly, I don't think it's possible for remakes to outweigh OC. If we get to a point where majority of the things that are coming out are things that have already come out, just coming out again, then I think we have a problem. But there's a healthy mix. I know a lot of people that are like, "Oh, we ever get remakes now? Nothing original ever comes out. Where's all the original stories?" And it's like, no, a lot of original stuff comes out. It just doesn't get the same big screen treatment that the remakes are getting because
Brand.
exactly, brand and money. Like
Right.
the original things usually can't afford to be worth, to house as much stuff as the remakes and remasters, and how much money is being pumped into some of those properties.
Yeah, and it's crazy to say that we didn't get anything new and original because we've gotten a Fortnite, we've gotten PUBG, we've got battle royales, we got new
Games,
Gods of Wars,
shows, everything.
yeah, we got reboots of all kinds. There's Ori and the Blind was a good one for us. There's tons of good stuff out there. It does get watered down though, for sure.
Yeah, Remnant is OC.
Yeah, Remnant's great. I love Remnant. There's lots of good stuff. Obviously there's a lot of. I can't call them busts because technically, like financially, they did well. In my opinion, they're kind of a bust. I think. Like Diablo, for example. Diablo 3 was kind of a bust for me.
Oh, I love Diablo 3.
Yeah, see, exactly.
I still play Diablo 3.
Yeah, see.
Diablo 3 on launch was a bust. I will agree with that. I didn't even play it that time, but I knew it was not good. Just because of the way the auction house and everything was set up. I was like, oh, that sounds awful. I don't want to be involved with that at all.
I did get it later, too, and I kind of liked it. And it's not a complete bust, but, I'm kind of a Diablo 2 fanboy.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's not like that felt like a complete reboot, and I was like, like, it still hurts. So,
but that's different because that's like legitimately a sequel. Whereas, and this actually leads into my next thing. We're doing a great job of segueing thing. It's going real well today. And is there a difference between a reboot and a long-awaited sequel? Like Diablo 3 to Diablo 2, I would consider that a long-awaited sequel. But what about Creed to Rocky? Is that a reboot or a sequel? Jumanji to the other Jumanji that came out with The Rock, reboot or a sequel? They mention things that happened in the previous entries, but it's not like direct pickup from where the last one left off,
That's actually really hard to answer.
Is there a difference between a reboot and a long-awaited sequel?
Okay, so I bring this up a lot with video games, with shows, with all those different things, and I think it has all to do with the soul of what makes something something. Ever since, I got done talking about Halo and all those different things, this came up a lot in a lot of our conversations, and I kind of stick to it. Like, it depends on how closely they represent the spirit of what makes something something. So hopefully that was clear. And it's like, in a lot of senses, as long as it has, in a video game, a lot of similar mechanics, and for the most part kind of similar lore and characters, it's in the universe and so on and so forth, then I would consider it well,
because then another one, Men in Black International, it exists within the same universe as Men in Black, but they very vaguely touch on the first Men in Black.
That's not a sequel. That's more of a reboot. And the only reason I would say that is because
the old things do still exist.
Yeah. So it's like, a movie in the same universe, told in a different place with different characters and different storylines and so on and so forth. That other storyline still exists. They'll make references to it, but like this is just its own thing, you know. And so like, I think the spirit of Men in Black is like Will Smith. You know, in Agent J, I can't think of his name right now. You probably know, yeah.
What's his name?
K. Agent K. My bad.
Okay, right. His Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, you know, like they are the spirit of that series. Like if Bad Boys didn't have Will Smith and Martin.
Yeah, Martin
Lawrence.
Lawrence, yep.
It's not Bad Boys. Like I'm sorry.
So the new Bad Boys, is that a sequel or a reboot?
I guess we'll have to wait till we see it. To be honest,
They did. They already showed a trailer. They're both in it.
For the most part, I would imagine a sequel.
Okay.
I would probably call that a sequel. It probably has all the most important things. So.
What about Bumblebee and Transformers? See, that one is a 100% reboot because they don't even mention past Transformers, I don't think, in the Bumblebee movie.
Right. That's like, a complete reboot.
But would you consider Creed a sequel or a reboot?
That's more of a reboot as well, in my opinion.
Now that's weird because I would consider that. See, I wouldn't consider that a sequel either, but I wouldn't consider it a reboot because, well, yes, it's kind of starting the story anew. It's also taking the previous story, whereas like
Bumblebee, they pick up where they left off for sure.
Right. Whereas Bumblebee is just like, these are the same character, or like Spider-Man 3 to Amazing Spider-Man. It's a different Spider-Man, different universe, you know?
Creed, to be fair with that statement, it's probably like a sequel.
But
he
even set it up. I wouldn't consider it a sequel either. I don't know what I would consider it.
Well, here's why. Because he actually set up for it. So, you know, they had like those last two Rockies that were like, okay, the younger people are coming in, so on and so forth, and he's doing all these different things. And then they bring up something directly related to the story in a very specific way with characters that are important, and they continue to incorporate those people as they move on with the story. It's literally, okay, I'm not the main character anymore, but here's the passing of the gauntlet, here's the passing of the baton, and so on and so forth. And there's never a break, you know. We still have Rocky, you know. Right. Sylvester's still there, you know. And so now we're just moving on with the story, and now we can have, and instead of Rocky, it becomes Creed, and it continues on, and it makes sense. It makes sense, but I would probably give it more of a sequel than a reboot. But it's a mix of the two, probably.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it honestly falls into like its own category. Like same with the Jumanji to Jumanji. Like I believe they reference the older Jumanji.
I think so.
In the newest Jumanji, so. They're sort of related, but at the same time, they're only doing that to, you know, push out the Jumanji name again. So it's weird. It's a very weird thing, and it's very confusing, and it's hard to really tell what the difference is. But I think some things are easier to tell than others, obviously.
Yeah.
So next thing I have is are there benefits, would you say, to rebooting, remasters, remakes? I mean, obviously, from the business perspective, yeah, there's benefits. A lot of money in a swimming pool to swim in. That's a main benefit. But as a consumer, are there benefits as well?
Yeah. As long as it's done in good taste.
Yeah.
You know, we got Into the Spider-Verse. Reboot.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's fair.
I benefit.
Now, see, all right, now that's Spider-Man is a weird thing too, because Spider-Man, especially that one, it doesn't feel like a reboot. It doesn't feel like a remaster. It doesn't feel like a reimagining. That one I would actually consider OC, because, and it's different from the comic book movies. For the most part, I consider them, even though they're not necessarily OC, they're based off of comics to some extent. But in like that is their first appearance. I mean, for Spider-Man, it's not, but for that Spider-Man, it is. So he's almost like a different character. But then again, you can say, well, the first Spider-Man is the Spider-Man from Spider-Man 3. So then it's really just a sequel of this. So it is really confusing, and it's hard to really do that, especially with Into the Spider-Verse. which is it's sort of a reboot. It's sort of OC. It's sort of the best thing that ever existed. So it's very strange with that one. I'm glad you brought that one up because that was one I was thinking of too. I'm like, is this a reboot? Not really.
I would definitely classify it as a reboot, only because it's built with the same spirit and idea of its original form.
It's a simul-boot because they already have the Tom, whatever his name is, Tom, the Spider-Man who's in the Spider-Man right now. I can't remember what his last name is. I keep wanting to say Tom Hiddleston, but that's the other guy. Whatever. Tom, Spider-Man boy. He plays Peter Parker.
Boy.
He plays Peter Parker in the movies. I'm really upset that I can't remember his name right now, but Tommy boy. That I consider a reboot of Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
Whereas because there was no prior big cartoon Spider-Man for Into the Spider-Verse to be a reboot of, I don't straight up consider and I totally agree with you considering it a reboot because for many ways it is a reboot of the Spider-Man story, of the Spider-Man lore, but it's so different than every other Spider-Man. He doesn't have the same story, the same upbringing, it's a different character. I don't want to call it a reboot either, but like I said, I totally agree with what you're saying. That's a weird one.
And obviously it gets weird with multiverses because we could go into Endgame and all that other stuff, and it's like technically, yes, I would still consider it a reboot, but it's still branched off the same similar time frame, and then it kind of wraps all these things. The universe gets confusing when you start making alternate dimensions, and it's it could be considered an extension of the story, which is where I think you were going. But at the end of the day, I'd still favor kind of like a reboot because, sure, it's just so drastically different, and it has such a different perspective when approaching Spider-Man in general. Different as in, obviously, the art style is different. Right. Obviously, the way they break down all the stories, how they all come together, the comic books slamming on the tables, and the origination of the stories. They clearly say, hey, there are a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences. And so, I can completely understand what you're saying and how you approached it, how the original Spider-Man's still in the series, all makes sense. And, it's fair. That's why it's tricky. That's why you asked the question, so.
Yeah. So I only got a couple more things here. Do you think that reboots, remakes, remasters, do you think that's the new norm? It coming forward, let's say we get the next Xbox. I don't know what it's going to be called. It's called Scarlet now, so I'm just going to call it Scarlet. We get Scarlet. The games are not backwards compatible, but they remaster them and put them on the console. Granted, this is already not true because they said Xbox One games will be playable on Scarlet. I just want to say that I know that they said this, but I'm just saying in this hypothetical, they start remastering games. Do you think that's going to be what the case is? Like Switch 2, we're going to get remastered Switch games and Wii U games and stuff like that? Or is it going to be like Virtual Console? Or do you think it's just in a few years' time, we'll be like, we're tired of all this. This is too much. We just want to go back to getting new stuff.
It's a hodgepodge of all of that, I suppose. I think it depends on how it works out financially. I mean, if they hey, we could just port these things over. We could design, code that will upgrade and age well. And that way we can take it on along with us and stuff and have easy updates to the specific things that we're doing. But I doubt they'll do that unless they get enough clout that it's worth it, but they don't really make a whole lot of money off of it. But the cloud in itself is what builds the brand, therefore they press on it. And I feel like Xbox is kind of doing that, to where they're like, okay, we've messed up brand-wise. People are kind of have this weird hate for our properties and our products and so on and so forth. And now we have to focus on brand, aka, Game Pass and how well that's doing and how it's starting to shape up to be something good. And they're starting to build the legacy brand type thing. So I think it just depends on how that stuff plays out, because that's really hard to answer, because you really don't know. Because it's it could develop in a way that people care about brand more, or they could just make so much money off of remakes that they're like, we can charge full price, because they've been charging full price for old games. Like, and that's full price.
Not always. Sometimes no. Like, you'll get some, like, for example, the Handsome Collection for Borderlands, when that first came out, that was $60. Obviously, if you waited on that, you could get it as low as free when they gave it away for a month. But then you'll have games like Crash Team Racing when it came out, remaster with with a lot of added stuff too. That was $40 at launch. So sometimes I guess it also depends on the property and how recent it was too. Some things, and something not coming out on the Switch, because for some reason everything on the Switch is like $60. $60.
And people pay it. $60.
$60. I don't really want 1-2 Switch that bad. It's $60.
Right. So it's like, dude, they're making money hand over fist. We can, as long as people keep doing it, like I just don't see a reason why they'll stop. But again, if they're making brand plays and they're giving you value, aka my opinion of Game Pass and such like that, then like it'll change. It'll be different. So it's like it's those things, and there's really, time will tell. That's one of those time will tell answers.
Right, that's fair. All right, and the last thing I have is just closing thoughts. What are your final thoughts on remakes, remasters?
So, my final thoughts is definitely as long as it's done in good taste. It's done in good taste. Like, I don't mind a shameful money grab here and there, but like these Disney movies. They kind of all feel like shameless money grabs at this point.
To be fair, though, they did say that they were going to calm down on them after Mulan. I think Mulan's like the last one they have.
Right, and
planned right now.
People really want Mulan. My wife wants Mulan.
I don't know why.
Because they love, dude. You don't. Yeah,
but like Mulan the movie is like so great. Like I don't know. Not everything needs.
I'm of the same opinion. I'm of the same opinion. Yeah. They could upgrade the animation. Great, I'll thumbs you up. But like this, I'm kind of like, I get it.
If they don't have Make a Man, like, you make a man out of you. If they don't have that song in that movie, then it's a travesty and needs to be thrown away.
It's a travesty.
Right out the gate. Right out the gate. If there's no I'll make a man out of you in that movie, throw it out. Get rid of it. Don't even bother putting it in a theater. Because that, like, nothing against Mulan. Mulan's a great movie. But that song goes way harder than it needs to. And it really
it needs
to. It makes that, it takes that movie to a new level. It really does.
I like that response.
I like that movie. I love that song. That song is awesome.
He said that song goes way harder than it needs to, all right?
It does.
It outperforms the movie, all right?
That song is a certified bop, 100%. Just like, anytime it comes on, it's like, yeah, let's get down to business. Let's get down to business to defeat the, like, turn it up. Let me hear more.
It's yeah. I didn't really like Mulan that much. Crucify me now.
It's okay at best. Like, it's not bad. I don't think any
You're about to get crucified
of the Disney
now.
animated. Well, no. I don't think any of the Disney animated movies are really that bad. But Mulan really shines on I'll Make a Man Out of You. and like, even Eddie Murphy's performance is okay. He does a way better job as Donkey in Shrek.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, it's definitely not the best Disney movie.
Shots fired.
Do you think it's the best Disney movie? For real here? Like, you're going to put it over Lion King? You're going to put it over Aladdin?
I'm not.
Put it over, like... I'll put it over Bolt. I think it's way better than Bolt.
See, it's better than Bolt.
Yeah, no
It's better.
shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Both
Oh, okay. I'm like, I was like, wait a minute, Dan.
yeah, no, I'm not saying that it's like on the same tier as Bolt. No, it's way higher than Bolt.
Okay, all right.
It's like, it's like it's probably like Hunchback of Notre Dame tier for me. Like and I like the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
I don't.
I think it's pretty good. Like the it's not Lion King.
It's not Lion King.
It's not Lion King. It's not Hercules.
I like Hercules too.
Yeah, exactly. Hercules is great. A lot of these, like, there's so many good Disney movies. It's besides the point. But Mulan is not. It's not like top 5.
It's classic.
It is classic. It's great.
As long as you give it that, I'm fine.
Listen, most of the things I say about Mulan are good things. I don't really have too many negative things. I just don't think it's as good as some of the other ones. And honestly, if it didn't have I'll Make a Man Out of You, I'm just saying it. I'm throwing it out there.
It's going down, all right? It's going down. I like that. It's a classic, though. We got to give it that. It's a classic.
Good. It's not a bad movie. It's way better than Pocahontas. Pocahontas is not really a good movie.
It's not.
It's not like at all.
Yeah.
It's just got the story so wrong and very, very whitewashed.
Yep.
I will say that the song in that's pretty good too, but that's besides the point. It's not I'll Make a Man Out of You by any means. Colors of the Wind is okay. Miko is an all right assistant, but yeah, no, that movie is whatever. And besides the point. My closing thoughts. Remakes, they're here for the long run. Remakes, remasters, reboots. They're all going to be here. My best advice to you, the person at home who's like, I'm tired of all these things that I've seen already. Blinders. There's tons of OC that come out all the time too. You got Mr. Robot, one of the best shows of all time, come out recently. There's so many good television shows that are just new properties, brand new, that no one's ever seen. You got Stranger Things, you got Mr. Robot.
Netflix is killing it. So
yeah, The Boys, all these things that are just being made all the time for you to watch. They're all there. And the games wise, tons of OC comes out for games. Tons of good new games. Borderlands 3 is coming out. You could be like, that's a sequel. Okay, fine. You got Remnant. You got Risk of Rain 2, which is also a sequel. There's a lot of sequels. I'm sorry. There's a lot of sequels. But good OC does come out every now and again. Horizon Zero Dawn, that's OC. That's not a sequel. That's not a reboot. The Spider-Man game, that's not a sequel. That's not a reboot.
There's a lot of
OC out there too. So just don't give up on it. Don't get negative and be like, this is all we get is the reboots, because you don't. And but I think they're great too. I will not say that I have not bought my fair share of reboots and reimagines and remasters. So I'm happy they're here. I also like seeing some good OC too, but it's also nice every once in a while to be able to revisit something from my past, or that I didn't get the chance to visit originally in my past because I was either too young or too novice or too anything that brought it out of my attention. Too cool. There was a time where I thought I was cool, and I was like, I can't play that game. That's losers game.
I do have one final thought that I want to ask you.
Sure.
Do you think there are flagships the way our generation kind of came up? So we're talking about all these remakes. Obviously, they're remakes and reboots because they're like flagships of our generation. Do you think there's any new flagship properties that kind of exist more in the gaming universe?
Now it's hard for there to be flagship properties because so many things like already have that flagship. Like Halo, or Xbox already has Halo. PlayStation, regardless of if they want him or not at this point, or he's really a mascot of them. Crash Bandicoot will probably forever be synonymous with PlayStation. And then say Nintendo, you have Mario. Like, these flagships are always going to be there. But you have all these other companies that are, the companies creating their own heroes and their own characters. They have their own flagships that are coming up. And you do have things like Blizzard's flagship is constantly being flipped on its head. At
Yep.
one moment, you're like, their flagship is Thrall from World of Warcraft, and now you're like, oh, wait a minute, now their flagship is Tracer. How did this happen? You know, like their mascot, their front image, the thing that they're associated with, is constantly changing. And then you have like indie game developers like Yacht Club Game who have given the world Shovel Knight, and you have the people who made Celeste who've given the world Celeste, which I can't remember what their company is, but like there's all sorts of things. Adventure Time is something that in like 10, 20 years people are going to be clamoring for again. Uh, Probably not Regular Show, because Regular Show is a show about clamoring for kind of like the 80s again. So in 20 years, people are going to be like, bring back that show that really wanted the 80s to come back. But they might, because Regular Show is a great show. And
It is a good show.
like for sure, Adventure Time, I think will have like a Renaissance era in like 10, 20 years where they might like come back for an episode or do something like that. I don't know. Like there's new properties coming out every day. I mean, you can even say that Borderlands is kind of relatively recent. I mean, it's been around for a while now, but I think the whole series probably like 10 years, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe
and I don't
less.
think it came. I think 2 is like what set it over the edge. I don't even think
Right.
1.
But now it's
actually did
like
it.
when you think Gearbox, your first thought goes to Borderlands. They've made Duke Nukem games, they've made Alien games, but your first thought when you think Gearbox is Borderlands. Like there's
Yeah.
no way. So it happens every day. It's hard to tell what's going to end up being a flagship, but I think they'll still be,
We got them. It just takes a little while for the brand to build.
exactly. You won't even realize it until like you're like, oh yeah, all right, cool.
Easy. All right.
Yeah.
I guess that does it for us.
Yep.
I don't think we have a topic for tomorrow, but we'll talk about that afterwards. And
Yeah, I was
then,
thinking like Remnant or something, since we both played that.
Yeah. We can do Remnant. Remnant's fine. I didn't beat it. I'm nowhere near where you are, but you know.
Yeah, plenty of time.
So, all right. That'll do it for us, you guys. Thanks for coming out, man. Hopefully we gave you some insights, some cool things to talk about, some cool things to think about. We'll come out most likely with Remnant next week. And that'll be that, man. That'll be that. All right. We shall see you guys later. Do so.